landscape of college football. We'll get to that here in the next 10 minutes. Who right now is the best quarterback based on results in college football?
Based on results, Bryce Young.
Bryce Young, Matt Corral. I don't know. I'd have to sit there and actually think about it for a second. Off the top of my head, those are two that come to mind.
But it doesn't include Spencer Rattler.
No.
It does not include
A lot of the Rattler hate is getting way
No,
blown
I'm
out of
not.
proportion.
No, Rattler's not. But he's not the right now. Based on production, doesn't appear to be the. It's the reason I brought that up is because it's not like you could normally have just said boom, boom, like last year, Trevor Lawrence, whoever else. Rattler would have been in the conversation among others. But it's right now. There were a lot of guys that you appeared to maybe see as quarterbacks that could be racing for a Heisman Trophy, and it kind of seems like right now that's kind of, in some cases, has been in neutral.
Yeah, I mean, for Spencer Rattler, at least, he's got no O-line, so he doesn't have much of a hope to dazzle with his arm when you can't block anybody and you can't run the football, and, you allow a team like West Virginia to basically just run to your backfield over and over again. So, Spencer Rattler got booed at home, last week. Won't have that opportunity this week, which maybe makes him play a lot better, not having the home crowd going against you. But, yeah, he's been ailed by the fact that their O-line's not very good, and they therefore can't run the ball. And then, Clemson kind of surprised. I think it's obviously surprising that they're in the position that they're in. You'd think that DJ would be like right up there at the top of the Heisman contenders or what have you.
Also no O-line.
Also no O-line though, and so yeah, there's teams that have issues like that it's hurting them right now. But yeah, Bryce Young, Matt Corral. I mean, Matt Corral's stats by the end of the year are going to be like the old Baylor quarterbacks type stats. Yeah. They're going to be ridiculous. And maybe he'll get more credit for them because he plays in the SEC, and I don't mean that flippant, but it's true. Like a lot of the Baylor quarterbacks, when they were running that offense, they got dismissed. RG3 did not, but he was the first one. So it was like, oh, man. But then when Seth Russell and Bryce Petty and Nick Florence and all these guys, then it sort of became like, oh, well, that's the offense that they run.
Yep.
And so that's not happening for Ole Miss right now. And plus, they play in the SEC. So he can say, oh, well, I'm doing it against defenses that are, more legitimate. So, yeah, those two, and there's probably one or two that we're missing.
Well, a lot of things that can get disguised for quarterbacks when you try to assess them over the years. And remember, I think people like to kind of compare quarterbacks the same way through levels. Look, in the NFL, if you've got a good offensive line, there's a good chance you're going to have that good offensive line for 7 years because you're going to lock them up and they're going to be there. Well, in college football,
maybe not 7. I think. The Cowboys have been able to keep pretty much theirs together.
If you have it really good, you can have it. Yeah. You're not going to lose. You're not going to lose 4 guys at once unless you want to.
Yeah.
But in college football, you can lose 4 starters in 1 year because they're all seniors. You can't keep them. So that's kind of what's happened with Oklahoma, who's had a really great offensive line for a good long while. They lost a lot of experience all at once. The same thing with Clemson. And I'll give you an example from the distant past. The 2001 Miami team was one of the best teams in college football history, player for player.
Maybe the best.
I mean,
they're in the top 3 or 4 discussion, maybe 1 or 2.
Okay, do you know who the worst player on that team was? The worst actual player that was a starter on that team?
No.
Was Ken Dorsey, who was a Heisman Trophy finalist.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying he was a bad player,
no.
But on that team, he was
a bus driver.
He was a bus driver.
And managed the game.
But he had these great stats because he had all these great players around him. He also only got sacked about 8 times the whole year.
Yeah.
And so if you have a great offensive line, it can mask a lot of things.
All right, how about Tanner Mordecai? What he's done, that's a name that was just on the chat room from Adam Martin, just throwing it out there when he did it against what TCU brings to the table, and he's now had a great start to the season as well.
I thought about Tanner's name popped into my head, but I'm still kind of holding out a little bit just because, I think a lot of it's Sonny Dykes' offense.
Sure.
And I also know that, he's thrown a lot of touch. And look, I'm definitely not anti-Tanner. I mean, we covered him when he was, 16 years old throwing touchdowns for Midway.
A lot of them.
Yeah, a lot of touchdowns for Midway. So I'm rooting for him. But I do think it's a product of the offense to an extent. And, also he's had some big games, but he's had some games where you got to be careful. Like the moment you get a little too high on him, he'll turn around and throw 3 interceptions, and
which he did against TCU, but they survived.
Yeah, so he's not quite there for me just yet, but he's not far off either. Like if he keeps doing what he's doing, then he's definitely gonna be in the conversation.
Here is one from Jeff. We have to read this. We know Paul hates puppies. You heard it here first.
No, one thing you can guarantee.
Kittens, though, yes, for sure.
Yeah, I do not hate puppies.
Okay, all right. Well, that's
kittens,
that's who knows? You can make your own opinions out of it. Do you know the last time that